you cannot control their reaction. When you draw a boundary, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for you. Welcome back to the channel, fam. I'm so happy to have you here on this Sunday, and I am excited to share with you folks today a little piggyback off of last week's discussion about getting a coach and what was the first thing I learned from my coach and how that's helped with so many other things in the different areas that I've been trying to improve in my life. Let's jump into that. Welcome back, everyone. Again, my name is Shan Otare. I am a self-mastery coach helping you to reflect and accept your past so that you can reframe your future. Help you to be a badass about your life so that you can start leveling up in the areas that you want to. Join me every Sunday and I help you with different tips in different areas that can help you with these small little corners of your lives that leads to a wonderful life. Jumping into this week's subject, I wanted to piggyback off of what we talked about a few weeks ago, which was my last video regarding getting a life coach or just getting a coach for the different things that you need in your life. Now, in there, I talk about all the different important things that you get from having a coach, but what I want to share with you today is what I learned from my very first coach and talk a little bit about that and how that kind of explains to what's coming up here, which is the holidays. All right. So the very first thing that I learned from my very first coach was one word: boundaries. Boundaries. Now, that's difficult for so many of us and for so many different reasons. There is a lot at play here. But I wanted to bring it up because we are coming into the holiday season, and it's interesting how when I speak with different ones about, what their plans are for the holidays, if they celebrate the holidays, a lot of times there's discussion about like, oh, I'm going into my mother-in-law's house. Oh, I'm going to my sister-in-law's house and I can't handle it. There's all these different complaints or, eye-rolling moments that I get from people, and I know there's stories behind these things, right? And the curious part of me just wants to know what the story is. But really, the important part of it is helping them to understand that they are allowed to draw boundaries. So today I want to share with you 5 different things that you can do with your family in a way that's not mean, right? And really cares about you. And here's the thing, and here's the one thing I want you to remember going in. You cannot control their reaction. When you draw a boundary, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for you. Right? So these 5 steps are going to help you to understand that. But I want you to understand that because some family members, especially if they're toxic, they will fight back. They will push back. They will give you grief. And that is on them. All right. That is probably why you're building these boundary lines. But I just want you to understand that before we jump in. All right. Let me just define or explain what a toxic person is. It's very, very simple. A toxic person is anyone who brings negativity or upset to your life. Okay. Anyone who brings negativity or upset to your life. What I know from experience is that many people who are toxic, who are being hurtful or being toxic, whether they realize it or not towards you, they're likely dealing with their own traumas. And so if you can keep that little space in your heart for them, then it might help you to deal with them a little better. But it's just a tiny space you have to keep for. It is not your responsibility to control how they act, right? And that's why we're going to go through these 5 steps. So let's talk about step number 1. Step number 1 on how to set boundaries is to understand that your needs are important. All right. Understand that your needs are important. A lot of times people fear putting up boundaries because they are fearful of hurting the other person. They don't want to hurt the other person. They don't want to come off as, an a-hole or a jerk or a bitch, they don't want to come off as the bad person, right? But really understanding that your needs are important, that you don't want to be made to feel little. And sometimes these little slides that happen with those who are toxic around you that you're trying to create a boundary with, some of these slides are super subtle. Sometimes you might not even notice them. And sometimes the whole group that you're with, namely your family, might laugh at it because it's kind of a humorous slide. But if it makes you feel any kind of way, that's a toxic behavior, right? And again, they may not be doing it to you directly. You have to remember these things. But remembering, number 1, that your needs are important is going to be the first step to do that. Because when you understand that at its core, it'll help you take the other steps that you need to in order to set better boundaries. Number 2 is to be firm, but be kind. All right. When you set these boundaries, it doesn't have to be like a callous, mean thing like, bitch, that's it. I ain't going to see you anymore. It is not like that, or it shouldn't be like that. A lot of times it ends up being like that simply because we're dealing emotionally and we're feeling targeted. And so that is just our natural reaction. Like, bitch, I ain't going to see you anymore. Like, yeah, that's not effective. It's effective in the moment. It feels good because you feel like you're standing up for yourself. But in the end, the behavior circles back around and it's at your front door again. So the best thing to do is to be firm but kind. If you are being invited to a family member's house who you just like, you know that aunt is going to be there who is always asking just inappropriate questions, digging too much about things that just isn't her business, then you can decide whether or not, number 1, you want to go, or number 2, of all the family members that you sit and spend time with, that you don't do it with her, right? If she says hi to you, you can say, oh, hi, aunt, hi, auntie, so good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, whatever it is. And just, I got to go. I have to go talk to someone, right? I have to go and I have to take care of the kids, right? You can still be kind, but if they say things to you like, let's say you've been married for a little while, or let's say you've been married for a little while and they're like, why don't you have kids yet? Or if you're not married and they say, when are you going to get married? Just simple things that, that doesn't sound like a toxic question, does it? Does it? However, while it may just be their way of having conversation and showing interest in you, but you don't have to answer to that person about it, and the best way that I've found to deflect, bad behavior when people are being like that, are being toxic, is to just kind of be humorous about it. Just re-ask them the question that they just asked, right? And just be humorous about it. Just say, when the divorce rate drops below 55%, then I'll get married, right? And they'll be like, oh, it's kind of a pattern interrupt because they're expecting a different answer. But if you just drop something silly like that, where it's just like, when the divorce rate goes down, I'll consider it, then it really deflects the idea of the question that they're asking that is making you feel uncomfortable. And so you can say, hey, answer the question. And I want you to remember, you don't have to answer the question. That is a huge thing in boundaries. You don't have to answer the question. And you can just say, hey, deflect the question, or just say, why do you need to know that? Throw it back on them. You can just say, why do you need to know that? You can be firm but kind. Like, I hear where you're answering that, but like, why do you even need to know that? Like, why does that concern you? Like, you can ask it like that way in kind of a joking way, but it may just make them think like, oh, why am I asking that? Because sometimes people who don't understand boundaries, mainly toxic people, they will step over them and not even realize it because, again, they are likely dealing with some sort of underlying issue themselves that they're unaware of. And so they're just spreading all that around them. So remember that when you're dealing with people who are toxic around you and you're trying to set boundaries, it's important that you be firm, but be kind in order to protect yourself, right? And that comes back to number 1, right? Understanding that your needs are important. And number 3 in setting boundaries is keeping your expectations realistic. All right. If you know that the only place that you folks ever go to for Thanksgiving for your family is a certain family member's house, and you know that you are going to get belittled by the same person as you do every single Thanksgiving, you can choose not to go, but you can choose to spend less time with that person. Kind of like how I said in the last one, you don't have to stick around for someone to treat you badly and for someone to treat you in a way that doesn't make you feel good. Now, I do want to say this. Sometimes when people say things, especially those who are toxic, because they're toxic, they are dealing with other things. And the thing is, they're likely not dealing with other things, but they're carrying around the baggage of toxic behaviors, which is why they spew them onto us. So when you see that and know that about certain people, you can just be realistic with what you feel is going to be tolerable for you, right? You can also say like, hey, I'm just going to bring by my dish, say hi to everybody, make a plate and, head on out with the excuse of like, hey, I've got to do something, I've got to work. Or maybe you could even take a work shift on that day. You can choose, but I want you to be realistic with your expectations because, again, setting boundaries is not about them. Your family may be upset that you're not going to come, that you're not going to stay, but that's on them to feel that way, and it's not on you to give them explanation. You need to set the expectations that are realistic for you, that you can live with, that are not going to make you feel even worse after for setting the boundary, but are also going to keep you protected by setting the boundary, if that makes sense. Like by setting the boundary, you feel like, okay, good, I'm getting this rest. I'm not getting belittled. I'm not getting, like attacked by this toxic person. But I'm also not dealing with family members who are just going to do that. Now, I will say this as a little caveat to the whole setting boundaries with family, in relationships, with your parents, with your children, all these things. Just a little thing that I want to add here is this. Most times, if you are just beginning to set boundaries, those who you're setting boundaries with will not understand it, all right? They will likely react with anger, with like, why are you doing that for? Like, we're family, right? I'm your spouse, I'm your kid, whatever. Like, they will react with that kind of stuff. And it might make you feel a little bad. But I want you to remember that just because they don't understand it doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. How much times have I said that this video? It might be something you remember, okay? Remember that it doesn't matter how they feel. Because if you continue to subject yourself to these situations where you are feeling belittled, where you are feeling like you're getting taken advantage of, where you are feeling like you're being put into situations that are negative or upsetting to you, then you are just doing this to yourself. And I don't want you to do that. You don't come to this channel so that you can learn how to continuously injure yourself. Okay, you come here to learn how to heal yourself. You come here to learn how to deal with things in your life. And that is why I wanted to offer that bit with you. They will likely react that way, but that's on them, and you have to just kind of let that go. And the more you do it, the easier it will be for you to step away. But also, the more you do it, the less likely you're going to get reactions in the future. They're going to be like, that's just Shan. That's how she is. She just does her own thing. Perfect. That's how I want you guys to be with me, right? I don't want you to be mad at me. I'm not trying to make anybody mad, but I am respectful of myself, and I do want to respect my space. And so thank you for recognizing me. Oh yeah, Shan, we'll just send her off because we're so used to her setting those boundaries. We're so used to her always pulling out. That's totally fine. Number 4 is very important. All right, it's simple. Be direct. Being passive aggressive or just dropping little hints about like boundaries that you're trying to share. Number 1, it's not effective. Number 2, it will likely exacerbate the situation and you will get more toxic behavior coming your way. Be direct with them. Say, yes, and I am only going to stay for an hour this time because I find it difficult to stay around people who, say they love me, but then behave differently than love, And so sometimes you just have to be direct with that. And that's fine. I'm not saying that I don't love you folks. I just know that 2 hours is my limit with this family. And I hope you guys can respect me for that, because I could just say that I'm going to cut you folks off, but I don't, because I truly do love you folks. So me showing up is my way of showing that I do love you folks and that I do want to, wish you folks a happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas or whatever it is, right? And you can just be direct with that. And a lot of people who are toxic, they're the direct people, but they are not used to people being direct with them. So a lot of times it really just kind of shuts them up, a lot of times. But sometimes you will get, from the older grandmother or the older aunt who may or may not be toxic, but sometimes they are. They don't even realize they're using this tactic. They're, oh my God, it's going to hurt me so much if you leave. It's going to ruin my whole holiday if you're not here. And that's kind of like what I call the matriarchal toxicity, right? I'm going to feel so bad. Everyone else is staying, right? And trying to make you feel bad. And because she's grandma or because she's mom or because she's aunt who's well respected in the family, you going against their wishes after they have openly said, oh, I'm going to miss you. Oh, I'm so hurt. Oh, you're going to ruin my holiday. By you standing up to them and saying, oh, I want you to be clear. Like, I want to be direct with you. I'm not saying I don't love you folks. I'm just saying I can only handle so much time with you folks because of things like this. You're trying to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. Feel guilty about ruining your holiday. I can guarantee you I am not trying to ruin your holiday. What I'm trying to do is not ruin my holiday. I want to enjoy this Thanksgiving. I want to be thankful for the family that I have. I want to enjoy this Christmas holiday. And so because I want to have joy for myself and for all of you. I do this. And so this is what makes me happy. And so I hope that the simple act of me making myself happy is all it takes to make you happy for me. Boom. What is she going to say with that, right? And I don't know. As a mom, I've done this before. I don't do this anymore because I know it's bullshit and it's not healthy and it's not fair to your children or to your family members to do that. I know it's bullshit toxicity, right? But I'm aware of it because I've done it before and I was doing it, not even realizing it. And it's a manipulative move to do that, to be like, oh man, that's really going to hurt me. That's really going to ruin my day. You know what? There's 364 other days in the year, right? You will be fine. And once I started understanding that, it really allowed me to soften my heart for those who are actually fighting for themselves and saying, I can't handle you folks. I can't do that. And because of that, I'm going to draw this boundary line. And so that's why it's important that they take that boundary and they listen to it. And if they don't, again, that's on them. You need to continue to walk away and make sure that you know that your needs are important. And the last one, number 5, is seek to take care of yourself. This kind of wraps up the circle. It started off with knowing that your needs were important, but it wraps up with seeking to take care of yourself. Self-care. Now, this doesn't mean going to a spa. This doesn't mean going to get a massage. This doesn't mean, going to get a facial, whatever it is. Although those things are considered self-care. This is more emotional self-care and making sure that you are setting the boundaries that give you a bit of happiness, right? Maybe you enjoy the time with your family. You enjoy having these holidays with them, but it's just that one aunt. It's just that one uncle who keeps, he's a little too touchy. He's a little too weird, right? And, he always is coming around you and I was always trying to touch you, right? But you enjoy everybody else's company, right? You don't have to completely cut yourself off. You can just cut yourself off from that uncle or from that aunt or from that sister or from that, that parent, whoever it is. You can do that for yourself and still be present in that space because you know that you do enjoy that time with your family, catching up, talking, having a nice time. It doesn't mean that you have to completely pull yourself out of it. But that's really what self-care and taking care of yourself comes to. Understanding what your needs are and doing what you can to take action to meet them. Now, with that being said, it's also not good to only care about yourself and be so self-centric. That's a little extra thing I wanted to add. That is unhealthy when it's only me, right? You definitely want to have a community effort and feel in your life. But it is important that you understand that you do take these moments to care for yourself and recognize them and, take action on creating the space for you to have them. That's basically the idea of number 5, which is to make sure that you initiate self-care into that routine. So I hope this list helps you folks with understanding a little bit more on how to set boundaries. There's so many different things that you can Google on how to set boundaries with your families, YouTubes that you can watch on how to set boundaries with your spouse, your children, your parents, right? There's so many different things that you can do, but this is just a little hint into how you can do that for yourself so that you can have a better holiday season or that you can just have a better season in your life, period, by understanding how to set boundaries in a way that is kind to those you're setting with, but is most kind to yourself, who you are doing this for altogether, right? So I hope this helps you folks. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe there, hit the notification buttons. Looking forward to seeing you folks next week without all the extra noises in the background. But until I see you guys then, keep evolving. Bye.